This is Optimal Finance Daily, episode 303, Are All Warranties Warranted? By J Money of budgetsaresexy.com. And I am Dan, your narrator and host here on the program. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday edition of Optimal Finance Daily, where I read to you from some of the best personal finance blogs on the planet. Now, I was going to mention our new podcast, but we're now just 5 days away from another book raffle, so I should probably tell you about that first. If you come by oldpodcast.com and join our mailing list, you're entered automatically into book raffles every single month on the first of the month, and that is coming up quickly right now. So make sure you're on that mailing list to be entered. I'll give you a reminder about that at the end of the show as well. So without further ado, let's get right to today's post as we optimize your life. Are All Warranties Warranted? By J Money of budgetsaresexy.com. I asked the wife what to blog about today because I was out of money ideas. It's hard coming up with them every day. And she told me to talk about warranties, which wasn't the most exciting thing to hear if I'm being totally honest. But I did realize I've never actually blogged about those before. And people are always wondering if they should get a warranty or not, even me at times. So I figured, why not? Let's do it. So this is for you, honey. Before I start posting away though, keep in mind I'm not going to spend the time digging up hard facts on whether warranties are truly worth it or not, because I'd rather just ingest 10 gallons of spoiled milk instead. That's how boring it would be. I'm just going to give you all my non-professional opinion, because I think it pretty much comes down to a personal choice anyway. And I want to hear your opinions on these afterwards too, because I know half of you have some real-life experiences to share with us also. And I'd much rather learn from you guys than the gurus out there anyway. Cool? Okay, so here are times when you may or may not need warranties. 1. When you buy a house. Now, these aren't the typical warranties we hear about, like with cars and electronics, etc., but you can grab a small 1 year or so warranty and then renew it for a few $100s. And I think it's not a bad idea to do so, at least for the first year when you want to make sure everything's A-okay in that new house of yours. We did it for our first 2 years, if I recall correctly, and while we only used it once when our bathtub randomly started leaking, we got a lot out of the peace of mind. And most warranties cover all your major appliances like fridges, AC units, stoves, dryers, etc. The only other part that kinda sucks besides the yearly fee is the deductibles you still have to pay on top of it. But again, they could really save you if something major happens that the previous owners happen to forget to tell you about. This helps make it suck less. 2. When you buy a car, new or used. I will always get one if they're available to me. It's a huge selling point in my book. My freaking cars break down all the time. And even when they don't, I like knowing it's all covered under the 3 or 5 year warranty I picked up. The only sucky part here is that it gets harder and more expensive to keep it going on the older cars. All new models come with one right off the bat, and even if you buy one that's 1 or 2 years old, that warranty still transfers over to you. But when you're talking about anything older than 4 or 5 years, you have to decide if the extra premium is worth it. For example, my 93 Caddy. Definitely not worth the $2,000 to $4,000 extra just to cover some parts. The car isn't even worth that. 3. When renting a car, though in this case it's extra insurance. These are the worst because they always tempt you and then freak you out when you're driving around without one. But in all honesty, I rarely accept these because your normal car insurance, and sometimes even your credit cards, will cover it if something should stupidly happen. I don't personally think it's worth the extra $15 to $20 a day to insure it even more, unless I'll be driving a crazy amount through large cities and or ghettos. And you'd be amazed at some of the areas we ended up in through Love Drop last year. If you ever want to know what it's like to be in a horror movie, pass through Gary, Indiana really late at night and drive super slow. We got lost there last year and came across this super rundown church that had the words "God Save Us All" spray painted across the entire thing. Man, was that scary. But yeah, for the most part, I hardly ever add additional car insurance to my rentals. 4. When you buy computers or electronics. This one's hard because I feel like by the time they break down, you'll probably want to get a newer one anyway around that time, or at least a cheaper one. You know, most of this stuff gets better and better as time goes on. But if we're talking about larger items like computers or huge TVs, etc., I'll usually pick up a 2 to 3 year warranty if it's not too expensive. Mainly just for the security of feeling I'm extra covered just in case something happens sooner rather than later. Most things like that are already covered with the manufacturer's warranty, but usually people don't like mailing things in to get them fixed, so the store's warranty makes it super easy for you. This one's a 50-50 call in my book. As you can tell, most of this stuff just comes down to personal preference and how much of a clear mind you really want. If you're one to worry a lot about things breaking down, the extra money is probably worth it to you. If you think you'll always be just fine and your stuff is unbreakable, then you're probably not going to want to shell out all that extra for nothing. So did this help you all? Are we glad the missus brought it up? How do you guys handle these types of warranties? I feel like I missed some other big ones too, but that's all that comes to mind right now. So leave them in the comments if you think of any more. At the end of the day though, you know yourself more than we do, and if something is worth it to you, just go for it. We've got enough pressures to deal with in our daily lives, so the more stress we can get rid of, the better. You just listened to the post titled, Are All Warranties Warranted? By J Money of budgetsaresexy.com. And I almost forgot to mention that we just celebrated 300 episodes here on this show. Optimal Health Daily hit 200, Optimal Startup Daily 100, and our newest podcast launched episode number 1. Also, our original podcast, Optimal Living Daily, is celebrating 500 episodes as of Monday, so it's a crazy week for all of us here, and I bring that up because Justin is going to do something special on Optimal Living Daily to celebrate. He's having authors read their own content, and one of those authors is who we heard today, Jay Money of Budgets Are Sexy. He's reading one of his own blog posts this week, so make sure to check that out to hear his voice. And like I mentioned at the top of the show, we give away books on the first of every month, and we're actually doing multiple giveaways this week too, just because of all the milestones that we're hitting here. So to be part of all that, make sure you're on our weekly newsletter mailing list at oldpodcast.com. Enter your email address there, and you'll be in all of our raffles automatically. Again, that is oldpodcast.com. And that's it for today. I'll be back tomorrow with a post from Financial Samurai. So stay tuned for that, where your optimal life awaits.
Hello, Life Optimizer. This is Justin Malik, creator and producer of this podcast, but also Optimal Living Daily, the show where I read to you from even more blogs covering finance, productivity, minimalism, personal development, and more from incredible bloggers like Derek Sivers, Zen Habits, Mark and Angel, The Minimalists, and all the ones you hear on this show too. So if you enjoyed today's episode and like taking amazing blogs on the go, come on over to Optimal Living Daily and subscribe to that one too. And together, we'll start optimizing your life.
You've been listening to Optimal Finance Daily. Be sure to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on each new episode and head to oldpodcast.com. That's OLDpodcast.com for a free gift as well as more actionable tips and resources to help you maximize your potential. Thanks for joining us, and remember, your optimal life awaits.